Hi, I'm Robbie Bobby. This video is part 2 in a series that looks at ACA's official, unofficial steps. The ACA Fellowship refers to them as the Tony A steps. Tony A referred to them as the ACOA 12 Steps of Recovery. I refer to them as the Inner Child steps. These steps are significantly different from the standard 12 steps, which are used by AA, Al-Anon, and ACA. However, only ACA has an alternate set of steps which are aimed at healing the inner child. These inner child steps are the backbone of the ACA program. Unfortunately, for reasons explained in the prior video, these steps are not directly mentioned in any of ACA's literature, yet they are crucial to recovery. The aim of this video is to provide a general overview of the Tony A steps without touching on the standard steps. However, I plan to do a 12-part series in the near future that compares both sets of steps. For now, let's start with the first inner child step. Step 1. We admitted that we were powerless over the effects of living with alcoholism and that our lives had become unmanageable. Okay, so what are the effects of living or growing up with alcoholism? To start, I think it's fair to say that it usually includes growing up with the effects of codependency. If you had an alcoholic parent, then you likely had a codependent parent as well. And ACA's literature states that the codependent parent does as much, if not more, harm to the child as the alcoholic parent. This is a real double whammy for the child, and later on for the adult child. And these effects are often written off as, well, that's just the way I am, which is why Tony A created the laundry list, to point out that these dysfunctional behaviors are not simply who we are, but rather how we were conditioned to be during our childhood. In step 1, we admit to this conditioning. The good news is, if we can be conditioned, then we can be reconditioned. The following steps, 2 through 12, are the reconditioning process. However, we not only admit that these traits exist, but that we're powerless over them, and they make our lives unmanageable. Not necessarily across the board, but likely in certain areas, like managing to be your authentic self in relationships, and not only romantic relationships. Managing to put your needs first, managing to feel and express your feelings. You can be a highly successful person and yet not manage to have true intimacy with another person. And here's some more good news. Powerlessness simply means we're powerless on our own. This is where a higher power or powers come in, and these include the ACA Fellowship, the steps, fellow travelers, and even a higher power or God of our own understanding. With all of this in our corner, we're no longer powerless. At least not in the same way. And by the way, in my opinion, studying the traits is a deep dive into step 1, especially when looked at from the perspective of powerlessness and unmanageability. If you plan to work the steps in ACA, I would suggest that you first walk through the traits with one or more fellow travelers. It will bring more meaning and depth to step 1. Okay, let's move on to the next step. Step 2. We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could bring us clarity. Clarity is the opposite of, as well as the antidote for, the distorted thinking we inherited during childhood and carry within us as adults. And this distorted thinking is rooted in the unconscious belief that we're unlovable or unworthy of love, including self-love. Feeling unlovable is the overarching effect of growing up in an alcoholic home. I call it the unnamed trait. And since recovery in ACA requires the daily practice of self-love, it's necessary to challenge the unconscious beliefs which create our distorted thinking. This is where clarity comes in. Like a breath of fresh air, like a beam of sunlight into a dark room, we start to see things as they are, not as we imagine them. Clarity comes from attending meetings, from reading ACA literature, and from working the steps. However, we must be willing and able to break through denial, understanding that a higher power will only allow us to see what we can handle and process in that moment. Therefore, clarity itself is a process, not an event. But if you're on step 2, then you're well on your way. Admitting you're powerless over the effects of living with alcoholism and that your life has become unmanageable is clarity. Understanding what these effects are, the 14 traits, is also a major shift towards clarity, and you're only on step 2. Each of the following steps either adds clarity directly or prepares you to receive it. Step 3. We made a decision to practice self-love and to trust in a higher power of our understanding. This step introduces the essence of ACA Recovery, self-love. Practicing self-love is the cardinal rule of the ACA program. This bears repeating. Practicing self-love is the cardinal rule of the ACA program. It's the only thing that can heal the emotional wounds we received in childhood. There are infinite ways to cover them up, to repress, to deny, to dull and distract, but no amount of cover-up or ignoring will heal them. They say that unprocessed grief doesn't go away. It just comes out sideways as fear, shame, depression, low self-esteem, perfectionism, alcoholism, codependency, and, of course, it comes out in the form of the 14 traits, or laundry list. The steps allow you to process childhood grief and ultimately dissolve it with self-love. As the wounds heal, the traits themselves will dissolve because they're no longer needed. The traits, you see, are defense mechanisms which protect the wounded child. You can't dismantle your defenses until you heal the wounds which they're trying to protect. Love is what's needed. Besides, we admit to being powerless over these traits in step 1, which forces us to seek new ways of dealing with the effects of living with alcoholism. Step 3 points you in a new direction. Go to where it points. And remember, step 3 merely asks that we make a decision or set an intention for practicing self-love. The following steps put it into practice. The word love is mentioned 6 times in the Tony A steps. It's mentioned 0 times in the standard steps. Trust in a higher power, also a part of step 3, will be discussed when we cover steps 8 and 9. By the way, if you want to better understand the effects of living with alcoholism, which we admit we're powerless over in step 1, then please check out my playlist titled The Laundry List Explored, which is a 14-part series that drills down into each of the 14 traits. Also, 12 ways to look at the 14 traits, which is a 4-part series. For additional videos on self-love, see my playlist titled Self-Love in ACA Recovery, which currently has 5 videos, including the cardinal rule of ACA, self-love, the catch-22 of self-love and how to break free, and the self-love decision, putting step 3 into action. And that wraps up this video, which is meant to be food for thought. If you got something out of it, please click like and subscribe and forward to a fellow traveler. I'm Robbie Bobby. Thank you for listening, and as always, keep coming back.